Hello everyone and welcome to Access 2013 How-To. My name is Steve Bishop, and in this video we're going to talk about how to use a timer to run a command. Now I'm going to start off with a very basic example that a lot of you will find useful, but then I'm going to take it one step further and show you how you can set multiple times throughout the day to run commands. So in order to get started, let's hop into our Access database and take a look. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a form here, and on my form I'm going to drop in a label, and this is going to be a clock that shows the time up to the second. And so we're going to put in some dummy data here in this label, and I'm going to resize the font to 18. Actually, no, let's make it bigger than that. Let's make it 28. And I'm going to change the font color to black, and we'll just double click to resize that, and we have a pretty nice sizable system time set up here on our form. Now let me go and rename this label. So I'm going to go and change it to LBL clock, and let's go ahead and save this form as it is right now. I'm just going to call it FRM clock. And now what I need to do is I need to update this label every second. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to the form properties here, and in the event tab, down here we can see timer interval and on timer. And the timer interval is in milliseconds. So I can specify after how many milliseconds I want to then trigger the on timer event. Since I'm going to be calculating this every second, I'm just going to do 1000 milliseconds. So that's going to give me every second it's going to then run this on timer event. Now I can go behind this on timer event and go into the code builder, and here I can specify what code I want to run every second now, so every time that the timer gets called. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this label here called LBL clock with the current system time. I'm going to first dim the current time as a date parameter, or excuse me, a date variable. And now we're going to set current time equal to, and I would say now, but the problem with now, if we just take a look at this, is that it gives us the full date and time. So you can see this down here in my immediate window. We get the date and the time. And really all that we're interested in is this part here. And this is what's called the long time. That's the hour, minute, and second. So I need to actually format this now into a date time that is just the time. And the way we can do that is using, in Access, there's a function that does this for us. So we're going to use it. It's called format date time. And I can pass along the expression of time, which is now. And then I can say what format I want it. And that's going to be VB long time. Okay? So if I'm just going to show you this, I'm going to copy this and paste this right here in my immediate window, and you can see that it just gives us the current time, not the whole day. So that's what we're going to set for our current time. Now I have my current time, so I can go ahead and set it to the caption of my label. So I'm going to go me LBL clock caption equals current time. Let's just go ahead and save this, debug, and compile. Yep, everything looks good. And let's just run this to make sure our clock works. And there we go. So every second now, our clock label is going to be updated with the current time. Okay, so now we want to have some sort of event triggered once a day. So we need to compare the current time with a specific time during the day. And in order to do that, I'm going to let the user actually specify the time that we want the event to trigger. So I'm going to drop in this text box here, and this text box is where the user is going to enter in what the time is that they want to perform the action. So I'm going to go ahead and say the alarm time. So this is my label, it says alarm time, and I'm going to resize this to be font 16, and let's just double click to resize that and expand this out a little bit so that it's wide enough. Now I'm going to change the name of my text box to TXT alarm time. And on the data tab, I'm going to go to the input mask, and the reason why is because I want to make sure that the user is only entering in a time. I don't want them to be entering in a date. I just want them to be entering in a time that each day this event is going to be triggered. So on my input mask here, I can click on the ellipsis, and we can see that there's actually already a long time input mask. So we can just go ahead and select it and click on Finish. And now when the user goes to enter in the time, they're going to be forced to enter in a long time. So now that the user can enter in a time in the long time format, I'm going to go back to my event for my form, to the on timer event. And here, now we can actually compare to see if the current time is equal to what the user entered into the text box. But before I even do that, I first want to check to make sure that the text box isn't null. So we're going to do if not is null, me.txt alarm time, then now I'm going to go ahead and do my comparison. So we're going to see if me.txt alarm time equals current time, then, and now we can run whatever commands that we want. Okay, so whatever function or command that we want to perform here, we can go ahead and enter it. So we'll do command, and I'm just going to do a system beep. Okay, but this could obviously be a reference to anything in your application. So let's go ahead and save this, and let me just debug it and make sure it compiles correctly. Looks good. Now let's go and let's test it out. So I'm going to do view on the form, and let's just set a time here to initiate our system beep, 03:24:00 p.m. And let's just wait a few seconds here, and there's the system beep. It's a little bling. I don't know if you guys could hear that or not, but it did activate, so we are all set. And there you go. That's a very simple demonstration of how you can set up a timer to run at a very specific second of the day. So what if we want to add more, right? What if we want not just one event to run, one thing to run, but we want different things to operate throughout the day? Well, things are going to get a little trickier, so we're going to step up our game a little bit on this code. So since we're going to be keeping track of multiple alarms, we want to keep track of not only the time, but we also want to keep track of the function inside of a table, because the table is going to be a nice, easy way for us to keep, to store all of the alarm times that we want to keep. So I'm going to go to create a table design, and I'm just going to say ID for my primary key, and this is going to be an auto number, and that's fine. Now we want to do an alarm time as a type of date time. And you'll notice that on the date time data fields, we can go once again to the format, and we can specify that we want it to be a long time. So that's the format that we want to store in our table. Then remember, I said we want to also keep track of the function that's going to run at the specific time. So we're going to say function name, and I'm going to just change the field size to 50. You can obviously make the field size whatever you want, but 50 is usually pretty good. And let's go ahead and save our table. So I'm going to say table alarms, and we're all set with our table. Now we need to modify our form so that we can actually add entries into our table. So I'm going to go ahead and go back into the design. We're going to add another text box. This is going to, remember, we need the function name. So this is where the user is actually going to type in what the function is going to be. And let's just resize this text box font to 16. Double click to resize. And I'm going to make this a little whiter here. Move this. And move this back over a little bit. Just a little corrections here. Looks like I dropped it down one. There we go. Okay, so we have our alarm time, we have our function name, and I also want a button on here that will actually add the entry to our table. So we'll say add alarm, And once again, we'll change the font size to 16. Double click to resize. And let's go ahead and rename our text box and our buttons. So this is going to be txt function name and btn add alarm. Okay. So on our add alarm button, we need to go ahead and add a record to our table. But before I even do that, what I'd actually like to do is whenever this form opens up, I want to open the table up as a record set behind the form. And I want to do that because it's going to allow the code to run faster if the alarm information is already available in the data, in the memory of the application. If it has to go and check through the tables every single time, that can actually slow down things. So I'm going to go back behind the code, and I'm going to go to the event on load. And this is again on the onload of the form. We are going to actually set a record set, and we're going to actually make the record set available to the entire form. So we're going to do private rs as record set, and then when the form loads, we're going to set the value of this record set. So we're going to say set rs equal to current db open record set, and it's just going to be the table, so tbl1, or excuse me, tbl alarms, excuse me, and db open dynaset, dbc changes, because we do want to be able to make changes to the record set as we need to. So let's go ahead and save this. And now that's going to fill our record set with the current values of our alarms. And now we can go and program now behind the add alarm button the addition of an alarm to the record set. So we're going to go to the onClick event of the add alarm button, and we're just going to go to rs add new, and I'm just going to do rs update just to make sure I've got both commands in there. And we're going to set rs and alarm time equal to me.txt alarm time. We're going to set rs function name equal to me.txt function name. Now I should probably make sure that there are values in these text boxes before I go and do all of this on the record set. So before I do that, I should probably do if if not is null, me.txt alarm time, and not is null, me.txt function name. So we're checking to make sure that those aren't blank. And if they aren't blank, then we go ahead and do the record set update. So end if, and let's just tab this over so that it's more legible and save that. Okay, so now that adds the record to the record set, but right now we don't really have any display of all of the alarms that are currently in the table. So let's go ahead and add a list box that will show us all of the currently added alarms to our system. So let's go ahead and add a list box. This is going to be alarms. And let's change the font size of this to 16 so that it matches the rest of the form. Now let's make it nice and wide and move the label over a little bit so it matches the rest of our form. Okay, so now this list box I'm going to need to rename first so that I can reference it in my VBA code. So we'll do lst alarms, and the list box is going to contain a list of the alarms from our table. So we can just simply go up to the data row source, and I can just select the table alarms, and I'm just going to add these 3 fields. And that's going to be fine. But I also, on my form, or on my list box, I need to show, I want to show the alarm time and the function name that's associated with it, but I don't want to show the ID value. I need the ID value to be in the list box so that we can select it. because we're going to also need to be able to delete alarms from this system, and I'll show you how to do that here in just a moment. But I just want in my list box to see the alarm time and the function name that's being called with that alarm. So in order to do that, I need to adjust the format. So the column count is actually 3 because there's ID, alarm time, and function name. But the column widths are 0 inches for the first column. The other two are just going to be automatically spaced. So we're just going to save that. And now let's go ahead and go back to our add alarm event, or our add alarm button with the on click event. And we want to say that once we've added an alarm to our record set, which is our table of alarms, let's go ahead and tell that list box to requery and get the latest list of alarms. So we're going to do me.lst alarms requery. Okay, so let's save that. And let's give it a try. Let's make sure that it works. So we've got an alarm time. Doesn't really matter even if it's in the past. I'm just going to do some function name that we'll come up with later. Add alarm. And beautiful. So we have the alarm time and the function name right there. And of course, you could get real fancy with this list box if you wanted and add, add titles to the column names if you want. But as long as we are able to add different alarms to the list, then we should be good. And if we just double click, we can see our alarms are being added to the table. So we are all set with adding an alarm, but now we need to be able to delete alarms. The way I'm going to do this, and of course you could come up with your own interface if you'd like, but I want the user to be able to just simply double click on an alarm and that will delete it from the list. So let's go to the alarms list box and let's go to on double click. We're going to go to the code builder and we are just going to do, we need to find the record set, we need to find the record in the record set that we just double clicked on. So we're going to do rs find first, and luckily for us, the list box, when we double click on it, it's going to change the value of the list box to the ID of the item we've selected. Okay, so that's going to be first name, or find first ID is equal to the value that we get back from me.lst alarms. And now that will move the cursor in our record set to that specific alarm. Now we can go ahead and do rs delete, and that's all we need to do in order to delete a record. But I am going to requery the list box one more time so that it refreshes with the latest data. So we're going to do me.lst alarms requery, and let's save that and compile. Just make sure I didn't fat finger anything again. And let's run the code, and I should just be able to double click and that removes it. Okay, so we are all set there, and I can delete each one of those, double check our alarms table, and sure enough, there are no alarms anymore. So we have a form here that adds alarms to the table and stores those alarms in the table and then displays those alarms in our list box for us. So now we need to do some coding that is going to compare the current time to all of the alarms that we have in our table. And if any of those alarms should be triggered, then go ahead and perform the function name that we detailed. So I'm going to go back into my timer code, and in here we're going to need to loop through all of the records in our record set. So since we're looping through the records in our record set, that's why I wanted to make it go faster, because if we had to go and do a query each time, it would take a little bit longer. And I don't want to do that. I want to just have all my records open and I could just loop through them each one at a time. So first let's do a if not rs eof, then rs move first. And that way we move the record cursor to the first record in our system, or in our record set, I should say. And then we want to do until RSEOF. Pretty typical looping code that we've done before for record sets. So rs move next. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to compare the current time that we set here, or actually it's up here that we set current time, and we're going to compare that to the alarm time within each record. So we're going to say if rs alarm time equals current time, then, and inside of here, we're going to actually execute the command that we saved. And we can do that just by using the eval function, and the eval function will actually interpret a string as an expression. Okay, so we can pass in that function in our that we put into the table, since that string or that function name is a string. We can use the eval method to actually evaluate that string as an actual VBA function to execute. So we're just going to do eval rs and function name. Now, there is one thing that we do, and I actually kind of tripped up on this a few times when I was trying to do this. Since we moved the record set to the end of the file, then what tends to happen is that it actually keeps the record there. So we have to do we have to move the record set back up to the top there. Because right here we're saying if it's not at the end of the file, then move to the first. But since we looped through the record set until we got to the end, then when it hits this code the second time through on the timer, it's not going to move the cursor back to the first one. So we need to actually force that to happen. But we also need to account for the times that there isn't a record at all in our record set. So what we actually have to do is if not rs eof and rs record count is greater than 0, then we're going to go ahead and rs move first. So we're just double checking. We're making sure that excuse me, actually, if we are at the end of the record set, sorry. So if we are at the end of our record set, so after we've looped through, if we are at the end, but we have records, then we need to move to the first record. That way, the next time that the timer is run, it will hit this part of our code here and see that, oh, it is moved actually to the first record, and it's just going to remove it to the first record again. That's fine. And then it's going to loop through our code. Okay, so just something that I did get initially tripped up on, and I was like, ah, oh, what the heck is going on here? And I realized that it was just looping through one time and wasn't doing it again. Okay, so let's go ahead and save our code and debug, compile. Okay, good. Everything looks good. It likes the syntax that we've put in there so far. And let me just check and see. I don't think, oh, I do have one alarm in here. I'm just going to delete this manually for now. I could have obviously done that in the form, but whatever. Okay, so I have my timer running there. I have my clock going. Let's see. I want to do the function name. Let's see. I'm going to do command beep, and the alarm time is going to be 3. I want to set this time soon enough, so 4130 p.m. and add the alarm. And now we just sit there and wait and see if it runs. And uh-oh, Microsoft Access cannot find the name do command you entered in the expression. Now, I wanted to show you this. This is an issue that I ran into when I was initially trying to set this all up, and I thought, gosh, you know, that's a little different. What is this error that I'm getting here? And I racked my brain about why was this not working, and eventually I came upon a solution here, and really the way that this should probably work is that this function name that you call should not be a system command. It should be a actual public function that you create in your methods, okay? Or excuse me, in a module. So I'm going to actually go ahead and create a module here. I'm going to go to my Microsoft Access classes folder here, and I'm going to insert a new module, and I'm going to create a public function that I'm going to then be able to call. So we're going to do public function, and this could be a subroutine, but function just works fine. So public function command execute, and to make this nice and variable, to make this kind of something that I can pick and choose which commands I want to execute, I'm actually going to set up a parameter here. So command number as integer. I'm going to pass that along to my function. So when I call this command execute, I need to also specify what the command number is. And now I can do a select case on that command number, and I can specify if case is equal to, say, 1, then I'm going to go ahead and do a do command beep. Okay, so if I pass along the command number 1, it's going to do a system beep. And let's just do, I'm going to do case is equal to 2, then we'll do message box. You executed a command. Okay, so those are going to be our 2 different commands that we can issue. Let's save this module. It doesn't really matter what you name it, so we'll do mod commands and debug compile. Just make sure that's all good. So remember, we want to use the command execute, and we need to pass in an integer. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And it looks like, did I goof on something? I might have goofed here. Let me just delete this. Okay, and layout. Let's close this out altogether and reopen our form. Okay, so the function name is going to be command execute. I'm going to do 1, and the time that I want to execute it is 0345. Let's do 15 p.m. and let's go ahead and add the alarm. And so again, we can see that the alarm is going to go at 3:45 and 15 seconds. Command executes 1, and bring, there we go. So I don't know if you guys heard that, but it certainly went off. Now we can go ahead and add another one. I'm going to add command execute 2. This is going to go off at 35 seconds. And now we have a second command that's going to execute. And you executed a command. Perfect. So we're actually able to call a function from right here within, we have a timer now that's actually executing these commands that we specify right here in the function name. Now we could, of course, get much more specific here. We could turn this into a drop down of all of the available functions that the user could pick from. That's probably a better way than just typing it in here. But I just kind of wanted to show you that you could do this as long as you have a command that is properly formatted to a public function or a public subroutine. Then you can just use that eval command function in order to execute a string as an actual command. Let me just delete these, and there we go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys learned a lot. I'm glad that I really like stuff like this, especially that allows you to automate some of the tasks that you may have around your office. Maybe you export CSV files. Maybe you have a specific task and you're just tired of having to go in and manually run it yourself. You can just execute it right here from this window instead. So if you guys did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe, and tell all your friends about this wonderful channel, because the more subscribers I get, I love it, because I know that I'm reaching more people. And hopefully I get to see you guys again in the next video. Thank you so much.